It's time for Fort Worth Musical Moments. Join us now as Steve Marquardt takes a look at the music and the artists who made the city's vibrant musical legacy what it is today. Well, welcome to Fort Worth Musical Moments. I'm your host, Brent Adams. I'm the host of the Tractors and Troubadours National Radio Show and Podcast, and I'm live this week at the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville, Kentucky. My co-host, Steve Marquardt's out of pocket today, so I'm in the captain's chair, but I'm in good company because my special guest is a Hall of Fame radio disc jockey and the host of Billy Bowles Swinging Country on KSSL FM out of the Lubbock, Texas area. He's like a member of the family to me, and I'm honored to have him here today. Billy Bowles, welcome in here to Fort Worth Musical Moments.
Great to be with you, brother. I tell you what, we're going to have some fun this morning, aren't we?
Well, one way or another, I knew we were going to get this thing on the air, and we're going to have some fun with it here. And I hate that Steve couldn't be here with us, but shout out to everybody who is joining us here from far and wide. You know, we started out this thing to really chronicle what was going on in Fort Worth and the fabric of the Fort Worth music scene. And this thing has grown beyond its borders all the way around the world. We see people checking in here. So thank you to everybody who's checking in. Please drop us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you got a question for Billy, don't hesitate to throw that in here too. So, I want to start out the show today just talking a little bit about kind of how we got to where we were here and how we became acquainted, and it has a Fort Worth connection. I got to know Billy through Glenn Douglas Tubb, who's the nephew of the late, great Ernest Tubb, as we were working on a project to try to get a statue erected of Ernest Tubb in the stockyards in Fort Worth. So, knowing Glenn, just a great guy. Here's my wife, Stephanie, and I with Glenn back in 2015. Of course, we lost Glenn almost 2 years ago now. And what a tremendous loss. He was like a member of the family and a mentor to me. But, for folks not familiar, even though, aside from being Ernest's nephew, he also wrote Home of the Blues for Johnny Cash, Two Story House for George Jones and Tammy Wynette. And Every Day I Talk to Jesus, it was recorded by Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan and Norah Jones. And, of course, he had the #1 hit with Henson Cargill, Skip a Rope. So he was a very influential guy. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to anybody here today and knowing Billy and Steve Marquardt if it weren't for Glenn Douglas Tubb. But, one of the things as we were putting together a campaign, he said, you need to reach out to this guy, Billy Bowles, who's doing great work out in the Lubbock, Texas area. And, see if we could get a little publicity through him. And you were so gracious to let us put a commercial spot on there. And we worked hard to get that done. And unfortunately, before Glenn passed, we weren't able to get that across the finish line. But stay tuned. I can't say too much, but I think there's a good chance of that thing getting revived here, maybe even this year, to get some momentum to get that going. And Billy, I can't thank you enough for that. And I was hooked on your program from day one and have gotten to know so many of the artists and work with so many of the artists who are on that program. And man, I can't say enough good things about how you treated me and have been a mentor and a friend to me along the way.
Well, thank you. It's been a hopefully win-win situation for both of us now that thank you as well for carrying Swinging Country on your great radio show. And I appreciate that very much. And
it's been a great addition.
We're both just striving to take this to the world.
Absolutely. And I think that's the heart of it, is the independent artists. And what we do here with our Rural Strong Media and Rural Strong Radio is all about trying to create some new avenues to take real great traditional country and Western swing music back to the country, as we say all the time here. To farmers, to ranchers, to folks in rural America. And it's being very well received, and not just in America, but all over the world here. And I kind of wanted to start out, I don't imagine that the stork just dropped you in the heart of Texas with a love for country and Western swing music. Where did all that begin? What are some of your earliest recollections with that music, and just kind of describe to folks how that has just grown over the years?
Wow, what a question. It started, I suppose, with television and radio. My dad on Saturdays every Saturday night you'd watch Hee Haw or Porter Wagner,
Right.
the different country shows that were on television. He always tuned into them. We only had one TV in the house,
Uh,
so Saturday nights I was always exposed to the country music. I didn't care for it that much when I was really young, like 6, 8, 10 years old. But somewhere along the line, it started growing on me.
uh,
And when Johnny Cash came on TV, for some reason, really enjoyed his show. And what really got me was, I got addicted to listening to Bill Mack All Night Open Road Show
uh,
out of WBAP, Fort Worth, Texas. And, I was an insomniac. I was born and wired a night owl.
uh,
So, I sneak that ear piece in my ear and I'd be listening to Bill Mack all night, every night. And I learned so much. It's like Tracy Pitcock's, our dear friend with Heart of Texas Records. He said, we were in school, Billy. And he's right. We
yeah.
were in school.
Without
So
without
that's
even realizing it. Yeah. Well, you brought up the name Bill Mack and what that meant to you, and now I kind of want to get to the story of how you snuck in the side door at radio, and I'm going to let Bill Mack kind of do some of my work for me because he did a great interview with you where he turned the tables on you back in 2018, and I want to share a bit of that. But before we do, just talk about Bill and he was kind of a Swiss Army knife of entertainment. He was a broadcaster, a singer, a songwriter. He had the great hit Blue for Leanne Rhymes and the song that we played last week, the Kathy Jewell song Please Blue Moon, and a bunch of others. But just talk about his impact on Fort Worth and what that meant to the music scene, not only there but far and wide.
well that they had what they called clear channel radio back then, where
Right.
it was AM radio, of course, and all the stations would shut down their power or go off the air, usually around dusk or so.
Mhm.
And that left the air frequencies open far and wide. And you had a few of these 50,000 watt stations that you could reach coast to coast.
Right.
And of course, a lot of people, Bill Mack took big advantage of that. Billy Parker, Charlie Douglas, so many great disc jockeys. On the rock side, you had KOMA out of Oklahoma City. But these 50,000 watt stations, truckers naturally trucking all night long would be listening to them.
Right.
And a few people really capitalized well on that, being Bill Mack, certainly one of the big ones, Billy Parker, Ralph Emery, Charlie Douglas. There was a lot of those guys that I listened to as a youngster, but I was really addicted to Bill Mack's All Night Open Road Show.
Well,
And
tell
I
me.
someone else if he was happened to be off or traveling or something.
Well, tell me about this interview that we're about to hear. And we're not going to hear the interview in its entirety. We've broken it up into a couple pieces, and we'll post the full interview in its entirety on the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook page here in the coming days, so you can hear it. But tell me about that interview, how it all came together, and just what that day was like for you.
Well, I was doing a series with Bill Mack. We did several weeks in a row, like I think it was around 9 or 10 weeks. And I had been asking him questions and talking about various artists. I mean, this man was country music history.
Right.
He knew everybody. And I do
Right.
mean everybody, but the one artist he never got to meet, and his biggest inspiration of all, Hank Williams Sr.
Right.
He never got to meet him. Talked to him on the phone, but he never got to actually meet him. And I asked him, I said, who did you want to meet that you never did get to meet? And Hank Williams was the only one he could think of.
Mm.
He knew everybody.
Well, we queued up a bunch of these photos to go with this first part of the interview, and we've got one in there with him and Lefty Frizzell. So we got at least that close in that kind of line of artists of that time. So
Sure.
it's amazing when, and I have to admit, I kind of got down a rabbit trail as I do. It's kind of dangerous when I'm putting together the materials for the show because I kind of get down these little side roads here and start looking at all of these connections and I got on his Facebook page was still up and going. Of course, we lost Bill to COVID in 2020, but that Facebook is still out there. And if you go on there and just start, just scrolling down there, and you see the pictures of him with everybody from Brad Paisley to Johnny Paycheck to Merle Haggard to fill in the blank. I mean, the guy knew everybody in country music, and everybody knew him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you forgot his most famous song of all he wrote, Drinking Champagne.
That's right. Yes. No, thank you for bringing that up, because that's a big one. I love that song too. Great song. Yeah. Well, I'm going to roll the first part of this interview here, and you can hear Bill Mack, the great Bill Mack, turn the tables on Billy Bowles, and we'll let Billy Bowles tell you the story about how he got into radio, and let Bill Mack do a little of the work here.
Howdy, Bill. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much, Billy, and thank you, my good friends, for your toleration in listening to my voice as we tell some stories here. It's very kind of you to take the time.
Well, your stories are phenomenal and historic. You know, you are living history, and we wanted to do this while you're here to share that history with us. This is just a huge, huge honor, period,
Well, again, it's a pleasure. I was thinking about something earlier. You've been very kind in interviewing me, asking me questions. If you don't mind, you're in radio.
Yes, sir.
You've accomplished a lot, and you'll be accomplishing more.
Well, thank you.
But here's the thing. You picked up the listeners. That station out there has really picked up the listeners, the followers.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to kind of turn things around. Switch the microphone a little closer to you and let me ask you a few things. I hope I won't be embarrassing you by doing this.
Okay. That would be an honor.
I said I hope I don't embarrass you. I hope I do embarrass you, because that way you'll be a little hesitant in answering, and you'll be very, very selective in the answers you present to us. Got that?
So as not to get the FCC on me?
I want you to feel very relaxed.
Okay. Well, we're good enough friends that I'm relaxed. I'm ready.
Take a deep breath.
Yes, sir.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Billy Bowles. Okay, now, you've asked me some questions, as I said. Let me ask you right now, how in the world did you decide you wanted to become associated with the business, the complex business of broadcasting? Tell me.
Well, to be honest, it had never crossed my mind that I would ever host a radio show. What happened was, I'm a salesman by trade, and in between some sales appointments, I was sitting at a Whataburger one afternoon. My cell phone rang, and it was the owner of a radio station that the company I represent advertised with. And I would write commercials, go in there and record commercials at their station. And the owner of that station had several radio stations, and one of them was a country station. And he called me up and he said, I'm going to make some changes to my classic country station. And I know you're a big country buff. Wanted to see if you might have some thoughts and ideas. Told me a couple of things he was going to do. And I said, well, let me think about it, and I'll get back with you. Well, 2 days later, long story short, we met for lunch. And he said, well, what kind of ideas do you have? And I said, well, one thing that no one in the Lubbock South Plains area is doing is playing and promoting today's independent artists that are keeping Western swing and traditional country music alive. He sat there a few seconds, kind of thought about it, and he said, you're right. Said, I think we need a radio show along those lines, and I want you to host it. Well, heck, I didn't even know I was being interviewed, so that's how it happened. I used to say, Bill, that initially I would say that it kind of fell in my lap, because that's how I felt at first, but it became obvious to me fairly quick that it didn't fall in my lap. God had placed this in my path for some reason, and I'm still not fully sure of all those reasons, but I'm convinced that it was God sent. And that's the answer.
That's what an answer. Now listen, what an answer, thanks to Whataburger, right?
Hey, Texas burgers, right? You bet.
Texas burgers and the good Lord, man, you can't beat that combination there. Great interview with the legendary Bill Mack, and I want to make sure that we say hi. We've got a lot of people jumping on here. I see Dina Wood on here. We can't say enough about what Dina does for not only swinging country but for the independent artists through Indie Express. So, good morning to Dina. Also, I see Dennis Ledbetter on here, great artist who's done a lot. Peggy Nora on here, our friend Larry O'Neill with Fort Worth Memories. Thank you so much to Larry for all he does to help us get the word out on his platform. I mean, he is the unofficial mayor of Fort Worth, and we think the world of Larry. So thank you so much, Larry, for joining us. We've got people checking in, Peggy York in Oklahoma. We've got people all over this country and all over this world tuning in. Far and wide here. So thank you so much to everybody. And we'll check in with some of you all a little bit later on in the show. But, Billy, if we could talk just a little bit, since we are talking about Fort Worth and Fort Worth musical moments, just put into your perspective what the whole fabric of that Fort Worth music scene means to the world.
Well, pretty much the same as much of Texas. I mean, you've got so many great artists that come from the Fort Worth, Dallas area.
Right.
You've got so many that live there now. Many of these independent artists and some of the greatest musicians on the planet live in that area.
Absolutely.
I mean, seriously. And, Fort Worth has been very, very important. And to me personally, for 7 straight years, now the first 2 was at Irving, Texas, just up the road, still in the Metroplex. But it moved, the Academy of Western Artists moved their award show to Fort Worth. And once it moved to Fort Worth, I started doing my Billy Bowles Swinging Country and AWA pre-awards jams at Little Red's Longhorn Saloon. Craig Copeland was very gracious to let us use that venue, and we would have 30 or more of the great independent artists with a backup band backing them up. And the finalists all got to do an original. So it was just an awesome event. And the first year it was so crowded and packed that the Fort Worth Police Department had 2 officers out front for crowd control. People getting in, so it was very, very successful. And, it's hard to say, but there's always been something special about Fort Worth. Panther Hall, for example, was so legendary. Crystal Springs Ballroom, that's where it all began for Western swing to some degree. I mean, that's where Milton and Bob really came together and created what the world knows today as Western swing. They were co-founders. So Fort Worth's been very, very influential on the music world always.
And you've gotten deep into the history of Western swing. Where did the passion for that genre begin for you?
Well, a couple of things really come to mind there. One thing is on my 14th birthday, and as I explained, and if you listen to all of that interview, you said you're putting that whole interview on Fort Worth Musical Moments.
We will, yes. That'll be coming up here.
They can hear part of this answer. That's for my 14th birthday. My parents got me 2 record sets. One of them was Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, and the other was Hank Williams. And I must have driven them absolutely mad as much as I was playing them. And I really just developed a love for that beat, that sound. And then I had a fake ID. I was inducted into the Texas Western Swing Hall of Fame. It says on my plaque, with a fake ID, you're going to Hoyle Nix dances at least 2 nights a week. And I credit Hoyle Nix and the West Texas Cowboys every bit as much as Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. for my love of Western swing. Now, here's what really, really drove it home. I discovered pretty quick to be successful with the girls, you had to learn to dance.
There you go.
And I would go out, I'd ask them to dance. I didn't tell them I didn't know how. They was fixing to find out soon enough. But I kept doing that.
Okay.
So by golly, I caught on. And so I love to dance. I love the music. And they just kind of go hand in hand. We Texans love to dance.
So true confessions from Billy Bowles, and we'll delve into some of the other deep dark secrets here a little bit later on. But to kind of piggyback on this, I want to go back to another clip of the conversation with Bill Mack, because Bill tries to lead Billy down this Western swing road here, and it's a fascinating conversation. So take a listen to this.
Fundamentally, we know how you got into this business. Immediately, I'm going to give you a name, and just tell me how you're going to respond to it. I know you like Western swing.
Yes, sir.
You become involved in much activity pertaining to Western swing music, both on radio and while some of the artists are making appearances in your area or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the name. Just give me an answer. Bob Wills.
The king of Western swing.
Why?
To me, it was Bob Wills and Tommy Duncan. Now, I will say this. Milton Brown, I would consider the father of Western swing, but he died much too young in a car crash. To me, it was Bob Wills and Tommy Duncan that basically took it to the world and sold it and made it the giant mainstream that it enjoyed there for so long. So for those reasons, I consider Bob Wills the king of Western swing, Milton Brown the father of Western swing.
And I don't believe in coincidences, but Milton Brown, as you mentioned, died in the automobile crash with the teenager here in the Fort Worth area. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, folks, in case you don't know that. And Bob Wills, his big start, his big break came with the light crust doughboys from the Burris Mills in Fort Worth. So the city of Fort Worth was the hub for Western swing to a degree. But you have some great Western swing artists from the Lubbock area, or not far from the Lubbock area. Right. Hoyle Nix. Does Hoyle Nix come to mind?
I learned to dance to Hoyle Nix and the West Texas Cowboys, and I will say and have said many times that I credit Hoyle Nix every bit as much as Bob Wills for my love of Western swing.
Okay, who were you dancing with?
Lots of them. including my first ex-wife.
See what I said? I've got to let you relax for a moment every once in a while. That's a good answer. You remembered the individual you were dancing with to a degree. Okay, now we have talked about Western swing, but I'm not finished.
Okay.
Hoyle Nix, yes. I agree with you about Hoyle completely, and of course, his son Jody continues to do the same.
Absolutely. I've known Jody for well over 40 years. I'd say probably 42 at least. And he is, as a song that he recorded says, he is indeed carrying on the show.
What do you think about the future of Western swing? Of course, those names you've mentioned, except for Jody Nix, they're all gone now.
Right.
Do we have a future? Is there a future as Billy Bowles sees Western swing?
Thank you for asking that question, because, yes, there are several young folks that have me highly encouraged for the future. As we both know it, Western swing suffered when rock and roll came along for some time, and but it's had its rebirths, a couple of them, and I see it coming again. For a while there, it seemed like some of the festivals would get a little smaller each year as more people were dying and passing away. And so many of the artists have passed away, and the musicians, the great musicians. But I see people like Kobe Carter, who's 21 years old, just turned 21, has already won the Academy of Western Artist Western Swing Male 2 years in a row. And that was with his first album out. He titled Legends, and what else could it be called when Bobby Flores produced it? Leon Roush was on it with him, Jody Nix, Jake Hooker. You couldn't call it anything short of Legends, you know. And with that first album, he accomplished back-to-back Western Swing Male, and his band this last year won Western Swing Band. There's a young boy of 11 years old by the name of Wyatt Olliman out in Austin area that has been playing fiddle for less than a year, or about a year, and he is already absolutely phenomenal. He's just a natural talent and such impeccable manners. We've got Mickey Daniel, who I am very honored to say credits me with getting her involved with Western Swing. She started out a young girl, met her when she was 13. She handed me a demo album of 2 Western songs. She was a Western performer and yodeler, and very good. But I encouraged her to check out Western Swing, kind of get involved, and she did. She went to Bobby Flores boot camp and Dave Alexander's boot camp, and she credits me with getting her involved in Western Swing, which is a huge honor to me. Then you've got folks like Kristen Harris. She's, I believe, 21 now. Oh, and by the way, Mickey's now 19, but Kristen Harris, I think she's 21, and she's doing very well with both Western music and Western Swing. And a young girl by the age of 13 recorded her first album not long ago. She just turned 13, Letty Bragg. She lives, breathes Western Swing. She absolutely loves Western Swing. Recorded her first Western Swing album at 12, and she's planning on doing many more. And so those things really encourage me for the future. Yes, I do believe there is going to be a long-lived future of Western Swing. And the key, I feel like, is new talent, yes, indeed, but also new original material that's done the right way. And I'm finding tons of artists, both Western Swing and traditional country, doing just that.
Great interview, and I could have sit and listened to that all day. And people, when they hear the full interview, when it goes up on Fort Worth Musical Moments, will hear one part that really stuck out to me. Man, it was kind of prophetic. And correct me if I'm wrong. This was done in 2018, correct?
2016.
16. Okay, so I apologize. I got that wrong earlier, but just 4 years later, Bill Mack was gone, and the one thing that you said in there is, I want to get this interview with you and get these recollections while you're still around. And man, the fact that audio lives on today, and we're able to share that there, that was huge.
Yes. And I got to credit a lady by the name of Denise Peterson out of Canada for getting this all orchestrated.
Uh-huh.
I never ever dreamed I would be interviewing Bill Mack. I mean, that's a long story. If I encourage people, Dina, you're watching. If you can, for anyone that wants it, Dina can provide it to you. It's the when Bill Mack passed away, I did 2 weeks of a tribute, and I tell a very, well, let's just call it like it is, paranormal type story that happened and got this when this got rolling. But this lady out of Canada, was a huge fan of swinging country and a huge fan of Bill Mack's. She just it broke her heart whenever he left satellite radio, and so she became friends with Bill. She was friends with me, and she just kind of orchestrated us to get together because she called me up one morning and said, "How would you like to interview Bill Mack?" And I about fell on the floor. Are you kidding? And we ended up doing several weeks of it because Bill had not done anything of this nature with anyone else. He had done different little interviews, but he agreed to do something more extensive with me, and he loved what I was doing too, and we became pretty good friends. So
Man, as
Yep.
somebody in radio, just listening to him, thinking about the whole theater of the mind, Billy Bowles, just the whole delivery, it's hey,
Yeah.
you just don't have many like that anymore. So the
Oh
fact
man.
that you were able to get all that, I can't wait for folks to listen to all that. One of the names that was brought up there during that stretch was the name Leon Roush, and that's somebody that you developed a personal connection with, and somebody who was a big proponent in your corner. Talk a bit about the relationship with Leon and what he meant to the history of Western swing.
Well, I'll answer the second part first. Leon was for 60 years, for all intents and purposes. Oh, let me see. I think it was since St. Patrick's Day 1958 was his first gig with Bob Wills. And for the next 60 years, he was the voice of the Texas Playboys. Once Tommy Duncan and Bob had their split, uh, Leon Roush ended up being the main vocalist. Now, Bob was not a great vocalist. He was a good vocalist, but he wasn't a great vocalist. But he always surrounded himself with great vocalists, and he would shine them. Bob Wills made all the Playboys famous because he'd point that bow at them and announce their name and give them their shot to shine. And when he pointed that bow, you better perform, and that's improvisation. But Leon Roush, I first got to know him at a rodeo dance in 1976. I had seen him once or twice previous to that, but I actually got to talk to him the first time, 1976, and I guess he just took a liking to me or something, or realized I was not just an average fan. I really loved the stuff. He asked for my address,
Ah,
and I gave him my address, and for the next, up until they came out with emails, every time I would see Leon Roush, whether it was Leon Roush and the Texas Panthers or the Texas Playboys or whatever, within a week or two, I would get a letter in the mail. It was great seeing you again, pal, and mention something we talked about or whatever. No other artist has ever done that to me.
wow. And I imagine you've got those archived or at least put under
I,
glass or something.
I wish that so many years. I mean, I'd love to stumble onto a couple of them. I really would, but I haven't yet. But he
Okay.
used to always send a little note, and I mean, every time. So that's special.
And he cut a liner for you that you've got too. It was pretty powerful.
Yeah, it really was. And he just did that off the cuff in Turkey, Texas at the Bob Wills Day. We were doing a recording, unfortunately, and that may have been one of the best interviews I'd ever done with Leon. Something happened and it got lost, but
Ah,
those liners remained, thank God.
right.
And but I interviewed Leon Roush many times. In fact, his very last radio interview I did.
Man, yeah, and now the legacy is being carried on very very capably by Jason Roberts, who also spent time with Asleep at the Wheel. Where do you see that whole? It's amazing to me, first of all, that it's still around in some iteration. But where do you see all that legacy going?
Well, boy, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that one. For one thing, uh, the music never died,
Right,
uh, but it's had its rebirths.
right.
And you and I were talking about this previously. This new documentary that Mike
Mm,
Marquardt worked on, The Birth and History of Western Swing, is, I believe, going to be very, very instrumental in what I'm going to call another revival of Western Swing. In fact, at the Ameripolitan Awards today in Memphis, Tennessee, it's going to show at 3 p.m. at the Graceland Guest House Theater. And tomorrow, it's going to show twice at Hernando's Hideaway
Ah,
at 5 o'clock and at 8 o'clock. So anybody that happens to be watching this and going to the Ameripolitan Awards, be sure and catch that video. I'm very anxious to hear if it's as well received there as it's been everywhere else it's been shown in private screenings.
Well, you think about going from just a concept to all the hard work that we know that went into that, and all the blood, sweat, and tears to seeing that thing being screened at Graceland and Hernando's, which is a legendary spot in Memphis. That's pretty surreal.
Yeah, yeah. But I tell you what, I once it hits nationally, and I think it will, you're going to see another major revival of Western swing, I believe. And as far as Jason Roberts taking over the name Texas Playboys, Leon Roush discussed it with Playboys because Leon was getting in bad health and he was up in age, and they talked about it. And then he suggested Jason Roberts, who had portrayed Bob Wills, by the way, in that play that Asleep at the Wheel did, A Ride with Bob.
Right.
Okay, so Leon then took it to the Wills family. They agreed. And so legally and professionally, the torch was handed over in Carthage, Texas. And I don't remember just exactly which year it was. I want to say probably 18 or 19. I wished I had researched that. But anyway, Leon Roush was being inducted into the Texas Country Music Hall of Fame, and he was in a wheelchair and on oxygen and all. But that night on stage, the torch was officially passed to Jason Roberts to take over the name.
And just incredible legacy to carry on there. And in that interview, now that's going on 7 years, you talked about some of those people, and Kristen Harris definitely still hanging on there. Wyatt Aleman, you just had on just a couple, not even 2 months ago, I guess, for the Hank Williams tribute show. He's turned into a great tribute artist for Hank Williams, and
Yes.
a lot of these folks are still out there. And the future, I think, looks even brighter than it did maybe when you did that interview.
It does. I mean, Kobe Carter's still playing. Letty Bragg, I don't know if she's going to continue to pursue music or not. She's gone to cosmetology school, and she's, hairdresser now and cosmetologist, all this. But I would assume she might get back into it. But Mickey Daniel is kind of off and on. She got married. They live out way out in the boonies in New Mexico, got a horse ranch, and they train horses professionally. But she still does some performing, and Kristen Harris is winning more awards than anybody. I mean, I told her husband in Lubbock at the CMA of Texas, I said, you're going to have to build her own museum.
Absolutely. Staying true to the form and great. And another name that comes up all the time, Billy Mata.
Yeah.
We got a picture here, and bringing in our friend Dina as well.
Yes, Billy Mata, that picture was taken in Lawton, Oklahoma at the Western Swing Music Society of the Southwest Hall of Fame. That particular year, 2017, both Billy and I were inducted into the Hall of Fame out there. And Billy did that trilogy album. This is Tommy Duncan, the trilogy, which covers the three main areas of Tommy Duncan's career. Part one is the hits that Bob Wills and Tommy Duncan put together as Texas Playboys. Part two is after they had their split and Tommy Duncan was on his own. And then part three covers when they came back together for somewhat of a reunion, and Leon Roush was with them by then. And so it truly is a trilogy album, and very, very well done. Right. And so Billy Mata is a huge part of the future of Western swing too, I guarantee you. Another one that was, but we sadly recently lost him, was Bobby Flores.
Right.
Bobby really did a lot of fantastic work as well. But his work will live on through people such as Jack Phillips that he has taught, and R.J. Smith and those folks. They're going to carry it on very, very well. And it will continue to live on and everything.
You have done a great job perpetuating that legacy and creating opportunities for those folks to get their music out, and doing the same on the traditional country front. Who are some of the artists that that you're particularly high on in that particular genre right now?
Oh gosh, Jay Cooker comes to mind. A lot of these folks are combination traditional country and western swing, like Jay Cooker,
Right,
like Jody Nix, like Bobby Flores was, Billy Mata. You know, they go. They're very different musics.
right,
Some may not realize that, but there's western swing, there's traditional country. They're very different, but they're related,
right.
and I think they fit well together,
And as
especially for dancing.
and as it was pointed out in the documentary, Western swing people will let you know that there is a distinct difference as well.
Yes, yes, that's a fact.
Well,
It,
the one thing I love about your show is that you have created those opportunities, and not to say that any of these folks wouldn't be noticed otherwise, but the kind of the advent of the world radio premiere that you guys have done, and just what you've done to draw attention to the music of these folks, and I think of some of the people. I'm gonna throw a couple up here. Our friend, the late Dawn Anita, who was a great vocalist in her own right, great songwriter, and also the aunt of the late great Joe Diffie, and she was a treasure to work with.
absolutely a sweet, sweet lady. You know, she was offered the big time.
Right,
She was given a big time contract, and she backed out of it because she found out she was going to have to be gone
right,
from home, like as much as 6 months at a time, and they had little kids. And to her credit, she chose family over the fame and stardom. And
right.
that's why I'm so fond of her song. One of the last ones she recorded, What Could Have Been, or,
Yeah,
never mind what could have been.
right.
That's autobiographical, basically, yes.
And I didn't mean to get off on a tangent on her, but I will tell you one thing: when she found out that she didn't have much longer with us here, we had actually had an interview scheduled, and she called me up, and it was a pretty emotional conversation, and she said, I just can't do this interview. I don't have a lot of time left. Got a lot of stuff we need to get done. Like, look, you don't have to apologize to me. I totally get it. And we prayed together, we talked together, and I'm like, I was at peace with that decision after we left there. And a few days later, she called me back and she's like, you know what, I want to do that interview. And we wound up doing that interview, and I think she may have done one with you and three or four, maybe Scott Weichel and a few other people, but she kind of made those rounds. Her last days on earth, she sure didn't have to do that, but as long as I live, I'll never forget the kindness and the intentionality that she had, and it reminded me that's kind of the way we should all be living
Yeah,
life.
absolutely.
It's
Mark Abbott, who passed away, one of Fort Worth's great musicians,
right,
uh, he just passed away about a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe.
right,
And if that long, but I tell you what, he worked up until practically the day he died. You
right.
know, he was still gigging. So
Right, we were just talking with that. I guess we shared that story maybe on the preview the other day. It all kind of runs together here with Steve Markwork because he played on Steve's last album too, and yeah, that's pretty amazing to see. And I think that's really the fun of all this stuff, not just the music, but kind of the stories behind that, and just the personalities, because they are big personalities and they're fun and interesting people.
right, absolutely. Oh, I've made so many great friendships with so many of the artists, and I treasure that. I treasure good friendships and relationships. It should be a win-win for everybody. You mentioned the world radio premieres. That was accidental.
Uh,
Another one of those light bulb moments. It's I kept hearing over and over, like Will Bannister, who's really going
yes,
places big time now.
right,
I was the very first one that ever played him on radio. Well, I keep hearing these people say, "You're the first one that played that song. You're the first one that played my album. You're the first one that ever put me on radio," stuff like that. And it dawned on me, I'm doing world radio premieres.
right,
And
right,
I gave it that name, World Radio Premiere. And at first, I thought I was going to have to be seeking them. They seek me. And unfortunately, I turned down probably more of them than I accept. because I do try my best to keep it real. My show, for anyone that hasn't checked it out yet, the initial broadcast is each Saturday morning, ksslfm.com, anywhere. Okay. And you rebroadcast it on Sundays and Tuesdays. And, uh, we'll talk about that as well. But when I do these world radio premieres, that means just that. It's the first time it's been played on radio of any type anywhere. And people seek that out. And many of those world radio premieres have gone on to win big awards. So
Right.
it's just caught on, yes.
Well, I'm glad we get you on Rural Strong Radio, because I was running into the situation where I'd always reach out to artists and they say, well, yeah, we'll talk to you, but Billy's got first dibs on. And you know what? I'm not mad at you, because I love it. And look, I'm a fan too. I sit down there when I can here, when I've got time at the kitchen table, and eat my breakfast and the Kylitos salsa on the scrambled eggs, and listen to Billy Bowles Swinging Country, and listen to those world radio premieres. And man, so many great people. For some reason, I had a photo I had queued up, and it slipped out of here. But Chuck Cusimano, another guy who's been very instrumental in that music scene, and one that you've done a lot with over time.
Chuck Cusimano's a great friend of mine, and I gave him the nickname Hallmark Chuck. And
Right.
the reason I gave him that nickname, I don't remember who I was talking to, but I was having a conversation one morning, and Chuck's name came up. And said, well, you play quite a lot of his stuff. I said, well, I just came out of my mouth. I said, well, he's kind of like Hallmark greeting cards. He's got a song for every occasion.
Right.
And I got to thinking about that later, and I was like, he really does. So almost any theme I come up with, you can usually find a Chuck Cusimano song that fits in with that theme. So I just gave him the name Hallmark Chuck, and it's kind of sticking.
Yes, he wears the moniker well. Yeah, so many of those great artists. I'm trying to get my computer to cooperate with me as we're going here. Trying to work on the little trackpad, working without a net here today. But yeah, it's been fun to watch. Another guy, I did get a picture in here. Our friend Scott Southworth, another guy that has gone on to do quite a bit here. Of course, he was part of the Music Row show on WSM, and a great songwriter in his own right.
He recently had me world radio premiere a song that's pretty interesting. Country, no matter what country.
Right.
And that was from 7 different artists out of 7 different countries that came together in this one song. And it's true, because country music is loved around the entire world.
Right. And he's one that has done a good job of kind of making those inroads, and it's really taken this internationally. You know, that you see such a hunger for this in Ireland and Germany, and he's gotten into the Scandinavian countries, and man, they just eat it up, and you've been able to grab onto a lot of that audience as well.
Yeah, my show is now carried not only by your Rural Strong, but I mean it's in Madrid, Spain, in Australia, in Scotland, Lawton, Oklahoma. Mentioned Lawton earlier, where Billy and I were both inducted the same day in the Western Swing Music Society of the Southwest Hall of Fame. And, it's growing, and these stations all came to me wanting to carry the show, and I said, well, they got to we'll have to leave in all the KSSL stuff, and so far all of y'all have said okay. Wow. So that's very generous as well, and that's a win-win for you and KSSL.
Right. Well, and I don't have a picture of him queued up, but I see I mentioned earlier Dennis Ledbetter on, another of these guys who unapologetically country.
Unapologetically, I love his T-shirt, man. I wear it. That's He is unapologetically country, and just a super fella to boot, and a great songwriter. We love Dennis Ledbetter as well, and he's a native from Louisiana.
Yes, and another guy that has been barnstorming Texas here the last couple of weeks. Our friend Bobby Marquez, another guy that
Texas, He's originally a Texan. He just got drifted off into Nashville, but
And
anyway.
and we're throwing up some pictures just to share some of the artists who've been on there. I don't want to slide anybody whose picture I don't have, because there's been so many great ones,
Yes,
and we love them all here, and
absolutely.
are passionate about the work that they're doing. And I know that you wanted to create a conduit to take that music to the world, and we're doing the same here, trying to, and we talk about it, we hear it all the time. Well, Western swing isn't what it used to be. Traditional country music is dead, and we're the ones trying to beat the drum and say, no, it's not, man. It's never been better and never been more accessible. You just got to know
Right.
where to look for it, and we're finding these conduits to take it to the folks who are really passionate about it. And it's fun when you see, kind of like we are here at the farm show this week, when we see all the young kids at the farm show, and you see them, the future of agriculture. It's very much the same way when you talk about some of the White Alamans and folks of the world that are that next generation that are just as passionate about it as a young Milton Brown was.
Absolutely. And yeah, you mentioned White Olliman. You got Jack Phillips,
Yeah.
Sam L. Smith, and
Yes.
isn't he out of Kentucky?
He is. As a matter of fact, he and I were doing an interview here in this room a year ago, and I had a nice conversation with somebody here about this show. You know, he's got a great heart for the Lord and is doing a
Yeah.
lot of inspirational country, and he got hooked up with some folks out of Oregon who brought him out that way to do some shows and prayer breakfast type stuff. And they were talking about getting him hooked up with more stuff out that way, because they were so impressed with him and what he brought to it. He actually played at a prayer gathering at the National Farm Machinery Show here in town last year. So another bright light here, and to see those young folks taking the bull by the horn, so to speak, and doing the stuff, it makes you want to go out and promote them and
Uh,
further their cause.
And in your particular case, especially with Sam L. Smith, think about that song "Blue Jackets."
Yes. Oh, that
What
was
an
huge.
song, and so the FFA. I mean, that is all about the FFA.
Right. They
Which,
grabbed onto that song and promoted it nationally. And he's been on RFD TV and a number of platforms sharing that. And that's what it's all about. I mean, you know, everybody wants to make a good living at this and get the exposure. But I mean, it's proof that the music can get out there. You might not be a mega millionaire, or you might not be signing autographs every day of your life. But if you love what you do, and you know, you'll never have to work a day in your life at this stuff, and can have a lot of fun and have a good career at it. And you know, those are the kind of people we want to put forward, because the machine can have theirs, but I think there's enough to go around to have the great traditionalists out there. And I'm comfortable just continuing to put that music out there, and we see a lot of it. And you know, we bring up Kurt Ryle's name every week with our friends at Clarksville Creative Sound. Just had another meeting with those folks yesterday evening. They've got a lot more coming up, and as a matter of fact, our friend Kathy Jewell, your boss at KSSL, is there writing songs with him this week. And that's one
yeah,
thing I wanted to kind of touch on too, is just the relationship with them, the doors that they opened up, and what that's meant to you.
well, Kathy texted me last night that she and Kurt had written 6 songs so
Yeah,
far.
they've been a machine this week.
So they're really working it and cranking it out there. And she is a great singer, great songwriter. And I've got to give myself a plug, if you don't mind, a shameless
Ab-
plug here, because you'll be
Absolutely.
hearing it too. Is tomorrow morning, I'm doing a world radio single premiere with Kathy Jewell and Lonnie Spiker. They just uh, recorded this song. And I tell you what, it's going to get your attention. I just had a light bulb moment when they were both on my Saturday morning swing back commenting. I thought, I think those two voices would work well together. And I put that on my swing back, and they both kind of agreed. And it took them about 3 years to do something about it,
Right.
but now they've done it, and I was right. I'm glad
Well, and they got the right guy behind the boards, pulling the strings to get things together too, because it's going to be dynamite.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And you know, hats off to Steve Marquardt, Kurt Ryle, and Clarksville Creative Sound Machine. I mean, they are really putting out some good stuff. And uh, I think the future looks very bright. You mentioned how we hear people saying, or every time there's a so-called country music awards show on, and
Right.
you country music's dead. Wasn't nothing country there. Well, they're right. That was mainstream.
Right.
That's not country.
Right.
They stole a name, as Bobby Mackey's song says, but it's not country. Okay, we know it. You know it. I know it. But country music is still around. It's not dead. It's just the independent artists that are doing it. Mainstream has people brainwashed in every direction,
Right.
but
Right.
you know,
Well, and it's a big world, and people have diverse tastes, and there's enough to go around for everybody. And I know
that's
that we're just going to keep beating that drum. And to that end, when you talk about the future, what's the most satisfying thing for you about doing this show and carrying on that mission?
uh, when somebody achieves a level of success like Will Bannister popped to my head right then and there, because look where his career is going now.
Doing a song for Clint Eastwood. I mean, how do you top that?
I play his private birthday party too. I mean,
Right.
come on. Yeah, it's being the first one that ever played him on radio, and he publicly acknowledges that, and things like that. That's very satisfying.
Right.
Comes back to the old saying I love from Zig Ziglar, who was my favorite motivational speaker and sales trainer. You can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want.
Right.
And you know, there's truth, big truth in that. So we're helping people be discovered.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what is I mean, how long do you hope to be doing this? What's the future look like for you personally?
good question.
Uh,
I intend to keep it up. I mean, it hasn't been well financially rewarding as of yet, anyway. But uh,
all
that
right.
feeling,
All
same as
right.
me.
Yeah.
But I think it will come around just as people discover. And again, we help people discover that it's still alive, it's well, and these youth, they don't know any better. They
Right.
love it. Well, hey, carry on with it, man.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
more young people are discovering it. We got a bright future, man.
Do you have any other pet projects that you're hoping to work on? Anything on your whiteboard outside of swinging country that's percolating?
Oh, nothing. I'm really concentrating hard on growing swinging country and or letting it grow naturally. But I'm hoping to, now that people like yourself that carry my show, maybe I can get some sponsorships that are products that are easily found anywhere or can be shipped anywhere. So that's kind of about to become my main focus, is trying to find sponsors that can service wherever you are. Other countries, our country, anywhere in the country, doesn't matter. Kind of like Scott Southworth's song, "Country, no matter what country,"
That's right. Absolutely, and there's a big hunger for it. So, I got somebody here. I'm just kind of thumbing through the comments here. They didn't leave a name here, but they said you are so appreciated, Billy, and I totally agree with that. That's awesome.
Thank you, whoever you are. I appreciate you for listening as well.
Dennis Ledbetter chimed in here, and he said he's got a duet getting ready to drop with Nikki Nelson for future release. So we'll keep an eye on that here. That'll be another one here in the
All
future.
right. That may be a future world radio premiere. Who knows?
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Well, what's the rest of the year looking like for you in terms of special events? Anything on the calendar yet, or anything you got circled? I know Turkey, Texas is always a big one coming up.
Well, that's the next big one. In fact, I was speaking with another independent artist, Keith Phillips, last night. Gave me a ring, and we just catching up. And uh, he reminded me to talk to a buddy of mine about possibly marking off a spot for him for his travel trailer. They went to Turkey for their very first time last year. Brent, I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever go,
It's on the
just
list.
on your calendar, you'll be back the next year and the next year and the next year. You once you go, you're hooked.
Well, that's the hope. I really do mean that. I really want to get up there for that and spend some time in there because it's such a huge part of our musical heritage here that we definitely want to make sure that we do that.
And so, of course, the birthplace of Western Swing Festival, Cowtown Birthplace of Western Swing Festival in November. That's certainly on my calendar. Probably be emceeing a portion of it again, and it's an amazing event. All these Western Swing festivals are family reunions. They really are. People
Absolutely.
come together, they dance, they get to know each other, they make friendships, and you look forward to each one of them each year. They all have their own special appeal, each festival, but a lot of these people make you every one of them or every one they possibly can. So you
Well,
know, it
I,
is. What it
and
is.
that's the cool thing about all the independent artists and the great things that they're doing. I almost kind of liken it to like if you're a motor racing fan, the NHRA, where you can get up close and personal in a way that you couldn't do it with NASCAR. And it's the same way with independent artists. If you run in these circles and go to these events, there's such a connection between the fans, the supporters, and the artists, and that's something you don't get in the mainstream.
This is a fact, and most of the artists, with very few exceptions, are very fan friendly.
Right.
I name a few exceptions, but I won't.
There's some in every crowd, I guess.
Right, right. But the bulk of them are very fan friendly, and most of them are very disc jockey friendly. That's
Right.
lucky you, lucky me.
Right. Absolutely. Well, they got to be. I mean, without that avenue, it'd be hard to have a career for sure. So, and I tell you, on that note here, we definitely want to remind people again, Billy Bull's Swinging Country can be heard Saturdays from 10 a.m. to noon on KSSL FM out of the Lubbock area. And you can stream it anywhere in the world, ksslfm.com. You can also hear it twice weekly on Rural Strong Radio, our 24/7 streaming radio station, found at ruralstrongmedia.com or on the Live 365 radio app. It airs each Sunday at noon Central and on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central. And again, you've got other outlets playing it as well. So a lot of opportunities. Plus, you put it out there in podcast form for folks who are members of the Swinging Country Facebook group, too. So a lot of places to get that content every week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And there's no excuse for missing it now.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's on you if you miss it. And I tell you what, you miss a week, you miss a lot of great stuff. So even if you can't catch it in real time, make sure you go back and catch it on demand, because that's the other beauty of what we're doing this day and age. You can catch it whenever your schedule allows you to catch it. So make sure you take it with you and listen to Billy Bowles Swinging Country, because you'll be a better human being for it. And Billy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today on Fort Worth Musical Moments. Thank you for your friendship and mentorship and everything that you mean to me, and also to the just to the musical community.
Well, thank you, and those very kind words. And uh, we take this on the air thing a little bit serious.
Absolutely, we do. And I want to thank everybody who joined us. I apologize if I didn't get to your comments. I'll take one quick look here again at the comments here before we get on out of here. Marcia Campbell on there. God bless you, Marcia. Great radio personality and connection in this country music business herself. And I'm so glad that she's on here today on the square dance team on the Grand Ole Opry. You can see her dancing if you get to Nashville, Tennessee, on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. So many great people. I got to thank my mom. That's my one fan who's on here, and she had some nice comments. I'm glad she made it on here. I'd be probably zero for zero here with folks if she wasn't on here. So thank you to her for watching, and everybody else that's in here. And I hope you guys will come back again next week. It's going to be just Steve Marquardt and I. We're going to kind of unpack some of what's going on with this kind of network of folks that we're putting together here in the in the country music and Western swing world, and some of the artists doing what they're doing, and some of how we talked with Mary Minter last week. Some of the build out. We had another great conversation offline here just yesterday about some of the things that are coming together. And it's like anything else in life, nothing ever happens as fast as you want it to, but then you step back and look at the cumulative here. And we're making some great progress for connecting independent artists to the fan base out there, the people that really want that music and the people that need to be listening to it. So stay tuned to that. We're going to dig in here and explain that at length next week. And Steve will talk about some of the stuff that's going on with Clarksville Creative Sound out of Clarksville, Tennessee. Man, they're doing big things. Kurt Ryle and Steve Marquardt. And as we talk about Kathy Jewell in there, and he's had a bunch of great artists. I know Steve's going out there, and we'll meet up there again in a couple of weeks in Clarksville, and they're going to record some more stuff. So so many great opportunities to just spread the wealth here. And I just want to thank again everybody for joining us here today. And I hope that you'll get plugged in. If you're looking at this on one of the other platforms, that you get plugged into this Fort Worth Musical Moments group. Sharing a lot of great content out there, a great place for people to connect and share their personal connections to the Fort Worth music scene, and also just their love for this music. A great place for people to get to know one another and share that common passion. So get plugged into that group. Also go and request to become a member of the Clarksville Creative Sound group, so you can find out everything they're doing. They're dropping a ton of stuff. I know on our Tractors and Troubadours show this week, Jasmine McDonald's new song Autumn Moon is the featured song this week, and boy, that's a girl that'll blow your doors off here. She's got a great future ahead of her. And Kurt's son Braden Ryle has got some new stuff out. Mackenzie McKetty, there's another name that's really representing for traditional music. She was the featured artist last week, and she's got a new song out. So make sure you go get plugged into that group. Also, I'd humbly invite you to follow the Rural Strong Media Facebook page here, as we share out a lot of this content, both on the agriculture end and the traditional country music and Western swing end. We've got a lot going on here, and I'd ask you to subscribe to the Tractors and Troubadours podcast, where each week we bring you agriculture industry newsmakers, hot button industry issues, educational features, and the best in traditional country music and Western swing. 52 weeks a year we're there, and we're portable. You can take it with you in all the podcast directories, or you can find it at ruralstrongmedia.com. And when you're on the website, make sure you check out Rural Strong Media, which is our 24/7 streaming radio station, playing a lot of that music that we just talked about here, the independents. You're also going to get a healthy dose of everything from the Big Bang of country music and Jimmy Rogers on up to Cody Johnson and some of those type artists. You get the independents, you get a lot of George Jones, a lot of Merle Haggard, a lot of Johnny Cash, Willie, you fill in the blanks, Lefty, Hawkshaw Hawkins, Steve Marquardt, you name it, they're on there, and they're rolling when we're not rolling ag programming. So I hope you get in there, ruralstrongmedia.com, click on the radio tab, or go to the Live 365 radio app, put that on your phone and search Rural Strong Radio, and you can hear that. Billy Bowles Swinging Country, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central on Sundays, and again on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. Also on Sundays, I want to make sure we get a plug in for our friend Robbie Lynn with Sundays Kind of Country. He brings you 3 hours of great inspirational country music. Just great music to fill your soul, and he does a great job with that program. Been doing it close to 30 years now, and he's syndicated nationwide, and we're proud to be a part of that. So you get him from 10 a.m. To 1 p.m. Eastern on Sundays, and that leads right into Billy Bowles Swinging Country. So, man, just when you're not at Sunday service or whatever you're doing, make sure you go take that with you, and a great way to start out your week. And then stick around with the ag programming. We've got the Bottom Line Report with Mark Oppold, and also the Farm Gate with Stu Ellis, and the Dirt from Nutrient, a great agronomy program, and also Ag Law and Tax Report with Roger McOwen. We're just trying to take another avenue to take that music to rural America through the farmers and ranchers of this country who are keeping us going. Well, I tell you what, again, thank you so much, Billy. I appreciate the time here. And we're going to go ahead and get out of here so I can get back to the trade show floor and find out more about what's going on in the ag industry. I still got today and tomorrow here at World Ag. Then I'm catching a plane to Kansas City to do some work at the National Association of Farm Broadcasting. And then we've got Commodity Classic, another big farm show coming up here in Orlando here in a few weeks. And heading to Washington, D.C. here in a few weeks to do some policy stuff as we work on getting a farm bill done. So a lot going on the ag side, a lot going on the country music side, but man, we're so proud to have Billy Bowles Swinging Country with us as well.
Well, it's my honor to be here. Thank you for asking me, and thanks, Steve. And thank you to Larry O'Neill for putting this together. I think this whole deal was his brainstorm, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I see a comment from Johnny, our friend Johnny Angel, checking on. He says,
Hey,
"Does
Johnny.
Billy talk at all?" He must have just gotten the last 2 minutes of that where I was giving my spiel here. Johnny, and anybody else who missed it, make sure you go back and watch it. It automatically archives. Great opportunity for me to let you know that if you missed any portion of this on all the platforms, it automatically archives, and you can go watch it in its entirety. And so I see the name Gil Prather popping up. I don't know who's operating that account nowadays, and that was another name I was going to bring up.
His
Another
son
guy.
Gib, I believe his son Gib has that.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
howdy, Gib.
Well, glad to.
Played a lot of Gil Prather. Gil Prather was a very dear friend, and he's another one that's really missed right now. There's a lot of folks we've lost, so we got that. Every time we lose one, it becomes more and more and more important to nurture these young folks into the business.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad I saw that name pop up because I was going to mention his name in here, and I'm glad we were able to do that because just another one of those, larger than life personalities that help kind of form the fabric of this music here, and we will continue to perpetuate that legacy. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Billy, thank you so much for everything. I look forward to connecting with you, and I thank everybody who joined us today on Fort Worth Musical Moments.
Yes, and to you and to all the audience, until next time, may God bless you and yours. Keep swinging country.
Absolutely. Have a good day, everybody. It's time for Fort Worth Musical Moments. Join us.
Howdy, Bill. How are you today?
You've been watching Fort Worth Musical Moments, a production of Rural Strong Media, copyright 2023. Please join the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook group and join us each Friday at 10 a.m. Central as we introduce you to another key figure in Fort Worth's musical heritage.